Hello, this is DearPsychopomp. If you're new here, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. On DearPsychopomp, we discuss topics centered around the living aspect of death. Our guest today is Paula Jane Newman. She is an absolutely lovely human being, comedian, actress, inspirational speaker, founder of Aware Meditation Incorporated, and so much more. Thank you for being here with me today. I just wanted to say that I'm a really big fan of your zombie voices.
Ah, that's the first that's the first time anyone has come out with that. But thank you.
It's the little things in life.
Always, always.
Yes. So one of the things as a death doula that I've learned is that everyone has a death myth, and that typically revolves around your first experience or first traumatic experience with death. So, for example, my death myth, my fear is I don't want to die alone. And so that has driven me to find a community and find a place where I belong and make sure that other people feel that they belong. And so I'm wondering, what is your death myth?
Hmm. So many things came up when you were talking about the first experience of death. And I think my first experience of death was my granny when I was 8. And it was April, and the previous August, my father had left on my birthday, the family unit. And then the following April, on my brother's birthday, my granny died. And
Wow.
so when she died, and I'm saying this to try to track what is my myth, right? When she died, I remember feeling alone and making this decision to never rely upon adults. And
Wow.
that my mother got we went through a divorce, which at the time we were the first people on the street. My mum hadn't had a job for a long time, and it was not an environment where people were advocating for single mums to work. It was almost like a scarlet letter. So she was preoccupied. I was very close, I would say kinetically and spiritually, to my granny. So that was a loss for me. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to have to. Actually, I think I remember. I'm trying to recall because it was a somewhat out of body experience, but it was also like this older wisdom in me saying, well, you do not want to go to prison. You do not want to be a prostitute. And so you're going to have to get your education. And so I really studied at school. That sort of was a big pivotal experience for me. Um, but when it comes to a myth, I don't know if it's a myth because I always think like a myth is something dispelled. I mean, I took more actions into the world that I was in as a result of that death, right? I'm going to change how I am in the world as a result of that death. And my mother's passing, which was 14 years ago, was she left me her snore. I never snored until after she passed. And I had no one reflecting the kind of unconditional gift giving, or she was always someone who was thinking of other people. Even a week before she passed, she was asking, how are you doing? What's happening? Because that's the way that she could be still in this world, right? And so I realized that no one else was going to reflect that unconditional love. So I had to be that person who would, and I became slightly obsessed then of being best auntie, which is just this ridiculous obsession I have of being a best auntie. I was never obsessed with being best mum, but best auntie has got me becoming out doing the fun calls, and last year it was me it was me and Santa one-on-one, like just insanity things. But that's also part of my mum's thing. For example, if you liked a certain pen, and let's say that it wasn't even expensive, right? She would remember that, and that would be in your stocking, right? And so she had this gift, and I used to be mad at everyone else, but I didn't realize what she had was a gift, that part of who she was thinking about other people and remembering these things. Like we would walk into a shop and she'd be like, oh, that's a Helen top. Now Helen is my cousin. And it was like Helen's best present for Christmas because it just had an energy about it that, and everyone said, oh, she was so good at presents. And so I talk about this because my myth of death, when my mum died, I was there in the room. I was waiting to feel this energetic lift up out of the room. And I even all sort of like looked up like, is she gone? Like did I feel this complete transition? Because the body is still releasing the breath, because I will remember it. We were there listening to the death rattle. And if people don't know what that is, it's then it stops. And you're like, it's the moment, it's like, well, did she go? Did she go? Did she go? Oh,
did it happen?
No, she's back. And so, and then the nurse, because it was a hospice at that time, we called the nurse and we're like, we don't know if she's gone because the body is doing some movements. And the nurse said, oh, yes, the body takes a while to expel that, which is where I think, that the needs of a death doula, or I don't know, maybe an educational class when you're in university about some of this situation, because it takes a lot of the fear out of what's going on. But at the same time, you don't want to tell the people when it's happening in their grief, or almost. There is this new show on Amazon, and I forgot the name of it. It's a comedian, and the first episode is about going to the hospital when the mum is dying. And it's so perfect because that's the death rattle. And her experience is like, what's happening? Well, it sounds like my mum is drowning. And the nurse says, yes, she is. Right? And it's just like, wait, what? I didn't expect that when we took them off life support. I thought it was going to be a nice to sleep, right? And so it's these, so great, because I also do comedy, I see the comedy in it. And then they had this scene, which was literally word for word. There we were, my mum's in the bed, we're sitting across from each other. Well, what are we going to do about dinner? I don't know, what do you want? Oh, do you fancy a curry? Oh, no, not with my stomach. Maybe we just get fish and chips. And it's like, what are we going to do? Are we going to eat them over my mum? Like put a table on her in the bed and share fish and chips and dip it in ketchup, But there was the same scene. It was a similar scene. And then the comedian's point of view was like, oh, you know what? If you're going out to get the shops, then why don't I just come with you and leave her alone? Like, it was this insane moment of, do we not see the comedy in this? Because we don't know how to behave. And part of that is we're told to don't think about bad things. Don't talk about that death. Don't, whatever you do, talk about the miscarriage while you're pregnant. Like, what would you do, for your own health? Right? Things like this fear of death without understanding things that, people who work in hospice know all the time, right? Or this is what goes on. So my myth was, I think I'm expecting some kind of big transition. And my mum had this huge fear of dying alone all her life. I think that I think with mine, my personal fear, if it's fear, is, oh dear, it wasn't supposed to be now. Like, I looked the wrong way on the street and I got run over. Like, oh no, I'm supposed to be a bit longer. I need to be doing some more stuff before we have this. I would like it to be older and do what my great granny did, which was had people come over in a hospital, have a chat, saying, I'd like a cup of tea and I'm just going to go to sleep. And they said goodbye, she had a cup of tea and she went in her sleep. And almost so relaxing for the people around you, but also getting complete. So I think my biggest fear is not being complete, right? And then maybe having to hang around and make sure people know a few messages. Like my mum, and I hope it's okay that I keep talking about this. And my mum told me before she passed, whatever happens at my celebration of life, please do not have him, meaning her husband, use the I think it was the orange shirt photo, or it was another colour photo, I can't remember. Please don't have him use it. I do not like that. I've told him. Okay, so she passed, and he says, I like this photo of your mum. And I was like, oh my gosh, he picked the exact photo she didn't want. And I said, well, I really like that frame. And in that frame had the picture she wanted. Like, it was out there on purpose, right? But so then he opened up the back of the frame, and I'm not lying, he could not peel the photo back off of the glass on the frame. He tried several times and went back, and I said, well, maybe we ought to use that one. It's nice and cheery, and Mum will have wanted that, right? And it was almost like I could feel her, like, yeah, I'm not going to let him do that, right? And so we had the service and whatnot, and we came back, and I remember opening up the back of the frame after the service and everyone had gone, and I went to the corner and the picture peeled off so easily.
You can't make that up.
No, and it's things like that, her specific wish, and of course he really liked the other one. And so that's an idea of like the energy of hers was still around, making sure you did it right, and I could just hear it in the radio. Peter, I told you don't do that. Oh, the one thing I don't want, right? And I think that I don't want to be hanging around watching people too long. I want them to be complete with everything. Of course, I don't want to suffer when I die. I'd ideally like it to be like it was. Well, my time has come. Like my mum did. My mum wrapped everything up. Everything with the funeral was where she wanted it to be. It was wrapped up because, she knew she had 5 years and she was very responsible for other people. And so it's traumatizing for people when it happened, and everyone responds differently. And if you have more organized and prepared, the easier it is for those who are grieving, because
Yes.
there's less to fight about, because there's always some blah, 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 blah thing that happens, and she has a nice little plaque in a woodlands area. It's a woodlands wild area that's dedicated, and she wanted to be cremated, and it was picked out, and it's a lovely space. And I very much would like that idea of being in a place where people can walk around. It's got wildflower, and it's attended to, and your ashes go into the ground and go back to nature, and yes, that she did very, very well, and so I think I just don't want to I don't want to energetically have to, honestly, I don't want to hang around. I want to know everyone there is loved and taken care of, and let them, move through their life as easily and effortlessly as possible. And I do hope that at my service there's laughter. I hope that people are laughing. My mum passed at 5:31 on a Thursday evening before the Easter weekend. And in the UK, you have Good Friday off, the Saturday, Sunday, and the Monday. It's 4 days off. And they lived in an area where there were a lot of older people. So that sort of backup causes delay to when you can do the service, because she died right after you could contact people. And then when the service happened, there was a volcano in Iceland that decided to erupt. So all the flights were grounded. So a bunch of people couldn't get out for the service. So, I remember I was thinking, my mum would be saying, oh, typical, isn't it? Just typical. you know, which, everyone made comments about. Like Carol would be saying, oh, so typical, right? People can't come because there's a volcano. And I had family out here in the States who were grounded. They got on the plane and then they were told, we might land in Scotland. No, we can't go. Couldn't go anywhere. And as a result, I ended up staying in the UK longer. But yes, I feel that would be what I would want it to be easy. And if I died too soon by something stupid like, you drank the wrong thing and that was poisoned, or just something random like, you knew you should have got on the later plane. Why didn't you listen? Like, those are the things that I don't want going on in my head. It just typically, bugger, and you should have known better. And then having that frustration energy right before I die, I really don't, I think I don't want to be frustrated because life is frustrating enough. Can I have some peace in the moment? I don't know.
Just, crumbs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand that reaction. My father passed away in 2018. And I found out on December 24th. And that was my reaction. Like, typical. He would do that. He was all about grand gestures, and of course he would go out on Christmas. He would. And that almost brought me some peace. So I was like, of course, in life, he did these grand gestures, and of course he does that in death as well.
Yes, right. And it's almost fascinating because him letting you know, unless he'd said on purpose that he wants it to happen, there's powers that be that decide when you actually find out, right? There are other people in the chain. That person's death. Now, they say how you come into the world is actually your relationship with the world. How you come into the world. There's a line of thought with that. And that's how things tend to happen. And it's interesting that maybe the completion of the life is based on the energetic pattern of that person while alive. So maybe I need to change how I do things.
Well, I mean, what you were touching on before with, I don't want to be frustrated. I want to have good energy. So what kind of daily things can you do to have that inner peace with, okay, that sucked, but that was a fun ride?
I would say most of the time I oscillate between joy, peace, and then frustration. And the frustration is a reflection of the world or what happens. And the frustration that I get usually just sort of comes up and I fall into it and then I leave it aside. So I think that I do a lot already, and I can probably, you're right, I can probably monitor. I think the thing is I get frustrated that I'm frustrated while I'm frustrated, right? I'm saying I notice that I'm getting frustrated. I can feel my blood boil. And then I get the reaction about myself having that reaction. And I think that's probably what I could work on. Like being like, oh, you're having this reaction. Let it move through rather than, oh, I'm having this reaction. I really don't want to be having this reaction.
It's like being a witness.
Yes.
Your soul is witnessing your brain being frustrated. And you're like, come on. It's, we need the frustration, though.
I think there's
not as much as we get.
Yeah, I agree. I think we have far too much going on.
Especially.
Sorry, go ahead.
Especially nowadays with all the knowledge and technology and the busy culture that's being romanticized with, all the successful people are waking up at 4:30 and going to bed at 3:30 and doing this and this and this and this and this when they're forgetting the The dolce far niente. The sweetness of nothing.
Are you saying they have 1 hour sleep?
Yeah, I was joking, but I am not funny, so that's okay. My husband, he can never tell when I'm trying to joke because I have such deadpan humor,
Mm-hmm.
and he takes me very literally all the time. So I
That's
have to
hilarious.
remind him that I'm joking. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny for me, but not for him.
That's funny. I had that experience yesterday. I was making a joke with someone. They have where they live, and then they have an office, and their office is the other side of town, so they actually have a bed there. And so I made some joke about, you see the extremes this one's gone to not be with their husband. And they were like, well, it's because it's where I work. It's not because I'm running for my husband. And I'm like, oh, I'm too tired to explain that. I think I'm going to go. And then on the way home, I'm thinking, now they've got that thing that I have a thing about them not liking their husband. Right.
Yes. That's typically why I stick to the dad jokes, because either it gets laughter or an eye roll, and I'm okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with
Mm-hmm.
that. So, knowing you as far as I do, I know that you have chronic pain,
Mm-hmm.
and I have that in my own way. I have Crohn's disease,
Mm.
and when you're first diagnosed and it first starts happening and you have to flip your entire life upside down to deal with it and sort of adjust to this new way of your body existing. I remember I was diagnosed in 2007, and it took me years to not feel ruined for the rest of my life. I thought I was broken. I thought nobody would be able to love me. I thought I was just going to spend all this time in the hospital, and where's my quality of life? And so I was somehow able to just kick my own ass and say that, it's you're still alive. Let's get going. Let's keep moving. And it was really difficult for me, especially with chronic pain, because nobody can see it. And it's to the point where, I have chronic pain and nausea, and I'll get a pain attack, double over for a couple seconds, and be like, okay, let's keep going. And so I'm wondering what your journey was with that, to be able to arrive at laughter and silliness and fun and
So the Crohn's disease is the digestive tract, right?
yes, anywhere from the esophagus to the anus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's autoimmune, so my body thinks that that whole system is foreign, so it
Mm-hmm.
attacks it in all those places.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I know several people have had it, but I don't really know what it does, you
Mm-hmm.
know.
Most people think it's just I poop a lot.
Oh, okay.
And no.
Mm.
I mean, for some people with Crohn's, yes. But for me, it's um, chronic pain and nausea. I have to have an infusion every 8 weeks. I just did
Mm.
mine last night, and you never know when you're going to have a flare up. It's stress triggered, it's food triggered, and I have been on so many different medications. It took them years to find anything that sort of worked, because they either failed me or I was allergic to them.
Mm.
And one of them, I had anaphylaxis. My throat closed up immediately, and I was terrified.
Mm.
And I've had two surgeries already, and the medication that I'm on right now is kind of a stopgap to keep me healthy-ish enough to hopefully put a few years until the next surgery is required.
Wow. Oh my gosh, that's so
Mm-hmm.
much. And how did you know that it was Crohn's? You had an attack where you got locked up and the doctors diagnosed it?
So I started having symptoms when I was about 2021, which is typical. The most common way people who get Crohn's are females,
Hmm.
20 to 30 in Canada.
Whoa.
So I just slipped right in there. I was like, "Hey guys, me too." And I had so much pain. I was in constant pain. And I went to the doctor who sent me to the specialist who did all the tests, and they came back inconclusive. And the doctor actually told me it's probably cancer.
Mm.
That's not terrifying.
Mm.
And it took them 2 years to diagnose me. So for 2 years, and Crohn's is stress triggered,
Right.
took took them 2 years to say, "Oh, it's just Crohn's. Here's a pamphlet. Go talk to your family doctor." It's like there was no support. There was no, "Here's what you want to know now. Here's someone who can support you. Here's a support group. Here's all the lingo that you need to know." Like there was nothing. And
Mm.
I was so bad at that point. I was on 44 pills a day. My entire day revolved around when I had to take these pills, and I had to take them with food. And it was just, my quality of life was
Mm.
shit. And then they make you do an elimination diet. And one thing that chronic illness has in common with other illnesses like cancer is I find that people want to help, they want to fix,
Mm-hmm.
because your discomfort makes them uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm.
And so they just want to fix you. So I had, I don't know, a whole bunch of people like, "Have you tried no gluten? Have you tried these 70 different types of supplements?
Mm-hmm.
Like, have you tried exercise?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's, I get where they're coming from, and I appreciate that they want me to feel better, but that's not how my body works. And just like other illnesses like cancer, I have a few clients who do have cancer, and one of the saddest, most prevalent things is that having cancer rearranges your address book.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
I found out who really loved me, and I found out it wasn't as many people as I thought it was.
Mm.
And it broke my heart because I was completely isolated. I couldn't leave the house. I was too drugged up on pain meds and steroids,
Mm.
and then the steroids gave me insomnia. So I didn't sleep for 3 days, and I called my doctor just strung out. Like, "I can't sleep. I need to sleep.
Mm.
I'm
Mm.
so tired." And he just prescribed more medications. And so, I mean, thank you for listening to me. This is kind of helping me process through why I want to help people.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because we suffer enough, like you said, life is hard enough. We should be taking care of each other to the best of our abilities with our capacity. And so I really admire your capacity and your strengths to be able to help heal with laughter, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so important, even on a scientific level, with dopamine and all the happy chemicals. But it's life is too short to be taken too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder, is that your superpower? Making people smile.
That's I don't know, my superpower. It's funny. I read some um Vedic astrology is in alignment with astronomy, and I picked up some report that I had ordered, 6 months ago, and it had what's called your imprint for wealth, and wealth meaning not just money, like where do you vibe most with who you are based on the science of Vedic astrology, right? And in it, it had your superpower. So it's funny that you say that. And I will tell you that it broke down several aspects of me, and all of those aspects are what I'm doing now, right? So it had one aspect. There's one thing that, in Vedic astrology, my main planet is Saturn, which is, if anyone listens to astrology, understands that that's the great disciplinarian. That's like, ugh. So that's my whole life, pretty much feeling like I'm under this lesson. But it said through that, my superpower, and it's so funny you said superpower, is being able to see where there is a gap in areas that needs to be filled. I have, you know what? Let me see here if I have it word for word, because it is better than what could come out of my mouth. It's called your sacred code archetype, right? And it came up with these things, of which is what I'm doing now. Organizer, always organized thing. Wise teacher. And let me clarify. It says harmonious organizer, right?
Ooh.
Someone who organizes in harmony. And I have learnt that if I push too much, like when I first became a meditation teacher, people were setting up retreats and things. But if I did not have the need or the desire from people I knew to do it, I know it comes back on me. So I have to be in harmony with what's actually occurring. I can have all these visions and ideas of where I want things to go, but if I feel that it's not actually what's happening, I'm not going into the debt or to look good, right? So
Right.
harmonious organizer, wise teacher, and then it has regal, artist, communicator, leader. So all of those things are exactly me that I've put together since everything changed during COVID, when I had my meditation become a non-profit, and then I realized we need to laugh. And then people coming out of the woodwork saying, you need to be doing this more. You need to be doing more of the creative aspect of it. And then me discovering my own personal healing by doing comedy, which was traumatizing at first. It still is a bit, right? And then people experiencing a better life as a result of taking a very small class and going through that's where I'm teaching. That's where I'm harmoniously organizing with other people, collaborating. But I get to be an artist and a communicator and a leader, right? And so in the organizer, here it's your superpower is sensing when something is missing. When it is, you can instinctually and immediately modify and restructure to promote the harmony and success of the whole. Now, I would love to say that then has my access to millions, but that's not what that's really saying. It's saying that's what you have. And that's where I discovered that laughter for healing is very well known. The science is in. They've done, and anyone listening who's not sure, please go to PubMed. PubMed is the website where it has to have approved studies. They're medical studies that are published. And there are about the effects of anti-aging, where they went into senior homes and had them laughing, and how it changed. Their stress levels went down and they lived longer, right? When my mom died, or before she died, we would rent the videos. This is before streaming, and just laugh, right? And I knew that brings a moment. Now I understand from the science also, my wisdom of being a meditation teacher, understanding breath work. During COVID, I followed a lot of Deepak Chopra's live streams, and he at the time was talking a lot about breath, and I was very attracted to this breath aspect. And I'd already done some breath work through my meditation, but I knew we needed to dive deeper when we took our breaths, and we needed deep breathing. And I began to cognize, even through my own injury, slightly unusual breathing patterns. And when my chiropractor would work on me, I would say, can we do this work where it's stuck and me do this breathing? And they are used to me with this, long-term situation I have with my muscles, and noticed that things started opening up in ways they weren't before, right? And then through this breathing, I was like, well, when do I breathe the most free and easy? When I laugh. And that's when I was like, well, why don't we do a fundraiser for this nonprofit? Bring meditators together. Bring perhaps meditators who also do comedy together, or a new person. Raise a few pennies and have a laugh in a community. And that's where we can see I have the organizer there, the wise teacher, and the regal artist, communication and leader with it. And it was then I knew I needed to start to do comedy. Mm-hmm. And sorry, I just had a thing come up. And it was then that a year or so later, I was approached by some people to help them with comedy. And, I know I'm not this massive, well-known person. And quite frankly, those who know how to teach aren't necessarily the people who are prolifically making a living at something, because they don't know how to teach what they naturally can do. It's a gift to be a teacher. It's a talent. It's a calling. It's the ability to see what's missing in a child or a student to be able to help them complete that for the knowledge. And as I did that, I saw that they too were having a similar experience to me, that they were starting to heal in areas of self-confidence, maybe trauma from when they were younger, and going through that experience. And then we do a performance, we get a professional comedian, and then we have the cause. We talk about mental health, the relationship of laughter and mental health, and then they do their small comedic sets for the first time with people they know in front of them, and experience being caught when you speak your truth, being caught and clapped and appreciated, and it changes the neurological pathways. Now, that was a great event, and people came up to me about doing a television show or a documentary. But it wasn't until the interviews afterwards that I have with people. That's where I see what really changes in people's life. Interviews with one student who didn't want to talk about one topic because she discovered that her and her husband had not addressed some things. And in this case, they were both getting older, and their view on life and, the looming death idea, basically. And once that conversation happened, then she was free to do the comedy. And that was what to me was like, well, that could take years of therapy to address. And you've taken one session of my 5-week course and you've had a huge breakthrough in your relationship. You're talking about amending where love is off, right? And if love is everything in all forms, that's the highest vibration we ought to be attending to, right? Mm-hmm. Then another individual who all their life they wanted to express themselves publicly, and as a female that grew up in Thailand and told to be a certain way, this was never something they could do. So for them to get up there and perform it and have a niece watching them was a huge accomplishment in their life that they began to feel freer from, you know. Naturally, people find their self-confidence boosts up. Naturally, they have diminished anxiety levels because getting up there and doing stand-up comedy, especially the first time, so much anxiety happens, right? You're going through this trial by fire and you're going out there in front of people expressing and speaking your truth, and it's your truth. And to be received in this way shifted. Now, when that first class happened and I realized that these people are experiencing positive elements in their life the way that I was for about over 2 years at this time, I was experiencing this healing with my body by doing comedy. And I'm not saying it was easy to do it. I'm talking hours. I'd have a show in the evening, all day, saying my set, walking in my room, trying to be okay in my body because I had so much anxiety, going out for a hike in the morning, trying to wear the mind down, and just the stop that I would feel myself, that I would do to myself for the day. And then I would let it go, get up there, and having some amazing transcendent experiences. Of course, wanting all the accolades that come with it. But then my body began to heal. There was something that I was doing by doing this comedy that was healing me. And yes, we want people to laugh, but it's not from the fix of it. It was from getting up and expressing it. So I'd already understood the benefits of laughter with my mum being sick and dying. I'd already experienced how when I was in lots of chronic pain, I would either do this dance stuff, which was always, I was in more pain afterwards, but I felt good to try to dance and move my body, right? And I also knew I needed to laugh as well. But now this was the missing piece. This was the piece where I had experienced through all of who I was, sitting there being a wise teacher, being a teacher before. I used to teach children. I used to teach English as a second language, right? Being a natural intuitive teacher. Then having my wisdom from all the meditation years and working out so much of my stress that I'm not trying to make someone be what I want them to be. If they say, you know what, that was funny last week, I don't really want to talk about that in front of people, then we try to get down to a little bit of why, and then we let it go, right? And then we see what comes up. So an example is, we do 5 weeks. It's usually a small class, right? And often people miss, and there's usually one person who ends up bowing out. This is just how it goes. And I said to them, I've talked about this before. The end of the 5 weeks, it's not the perfect set. We then lead up to the actual show and we polish it. And there are huge steps that are taken. And this one chap said, well, I've missed too many. I'll finish off the class, but I don't want to be part of the show. And I said, okay, we've got 15 minutes left. Let's just see what you've got then. And then he came up with this story. And there was so much comedy in the story that he wasn't even trying. And what would happen was he'd watch the videos from the classes and it had gone in to the subconscious unconsciously when they were aware. And there it was right in front of us. And within 5 minutes of him saying the story, we all gave our little feedback with wisdom of where to go. He now had marked out a potential set to do for the show and had a complete psychic change of his being. And I took a moment to say to everyone, do you see how fast this happened? Because we'd been all the weeks before. Mm-hmm. This is why. And because of the safety in this small group and the uniqueness of this person's voice compared to the other people in the class. Right? And so we have a diverse group of people in every showcase because we bring out the unique essence of the person without trying, right? Mm-hmm. Their story was about how they used to party really hard, never got caught with a DUI when using and drinking, but when they sobered up in that first year, not only did they get stopped by the police, but it was a rookie policeman, and they ended up getting arrested. They ended up being taken to the hospital for a drug test, and they ended up going to court, and the whole thing got thrown out. But the irony of,
Wow.
when they were sober, this happened. And we all started coming up with these things to say. And just as you're having that reaction, like, wow, that's enough for a 1 or 2 minute comedy set story to put in some jokes and them talk about their truth. And it happened like that because we'd built up and we'd addressed their fears of it. And it was very gentle and easy. Often, I work with people still. That's how you do it. You hash comedy up. And no one does it in the same way that I do, where we just have this moment of inspiration that comes through. And then I take the time to tell them and say, you have just witnessed what this magic essence quality is about what I'm teaching. Because the two of them were so happy to be part of something and see someone come up with that. They're like, that's amazing. We should definitely put that. Oh, that's so different and unique. And then they were both kind of coming up with jokes for the person, right? Because it's a consciousness. And I interestingly will do that show on Zoom because they're all dialing in. I'm working now with someone, and we're preparing for Mental Health Awareness Month in May, where I usually have a big event, and they've done it with their group. And one of the people in my class is a diehard Britney Spears fan and was part of the whole conservatorship when it happened, like the spearheading person. Well, the person that I'm working with about this event in May is this gorgeous mixed African-American woman who does a bomb impression of Britney Spears singing Baby, 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 which is this other person's favorite song from Britney Spears that they talk about in the set. And so I said to that person, you have to be the MC for this show because we're working on something about goodness and laughing, and you can do the Britney Spears impression. And then this person, who is not a Caucasian female fan, right, is an Asian male obsessed with Britney Spears, completely different archetypes, liking the same one thing. And it's now bringing together the story of what this culmination is. Each culmination is a story bringing all these people together from different places. It's not only a comedy show. It's so much more. And people watch it and like, that's crazy that they did that. And to me, it's not like, whoa, that's crazy coincidence. That's how my life lives now. And being in that space, and Marie, you talked about how do we get not frustrated. When I live in that space and I do activities for those kind of events to occur, the synchronicity of this is what's supposed to be happening. It's supposed to be happening now. It's supposed to be with the right people that have signed up for all reasons, that one knows one is in alignment in purpose and there's a reason for being here. Because the cultural conditioning is always, well, you don't have a house, or you don't have all this money, or you don't look a certain way, you don't have what's called the health, right? But then when you do this, one realizes everything that we've done, everything that I've been in this world leads me to this one moment. And that's what this is really about. And so, I'll be honest with you, the last class that I did, when we did the combination, they didn't follow any of my instructions. I was like, well, and there I was wanting to impress the pros, this is what I'm doing. These people are really getting amazing sets. It didn't happen, right? And this one, they're doing the work, right? It's coming up. Like the week before last, one person, it felt like they didn't get it. And then they come back and they did the same thing and it simply sunk in, right? And it's with nurture, it's with compassion. And because I'm not a big name, of course, I'm not going to get all these people flocking to it. But it's laughter for the healing aspect of it. And then the speaking the truth of it in this environment is the next step. It's the next stage to healing. I literally try, sorry, to get more people after they take the course to do a little video about how it made their life. They'll send me endless texts. They'll send me messages. I was like, I need a video, or I need you to put it on a review. So that, I mean, yes, in a fundamental 3D way, people think, oh, you're just trying to get more customers. I'm trying to get more people to have this experience, to change the vibration of who they are in a positive way. Because if I wanted to make more money, the cost of the class would be $600 to $1,000 US, right? I know people who charge for 1 hour $400 or $600. This is like $250 for 5 weeks, and most of the time there are offers because they don't know who I am, right? Because it seems strange, and I don't have a special on Netflix, so that's not what's bringing people to that, right? Because people want the prestige. The idea that someone can cognize and do this with these qualities that I've just read off, this is perfect. Someone who lets go when it's not going to happen, right? Someone who says, okay, we do it. The person I'm working with for the mental health awareness was all these back and forth where to do it. And I said, you know what? You have a show every month at this one particular club. If you're open to it, have your show be this event. Why have double the stress? The premise of Aware Meditation Inc., even though I'm primarily a Vedic meditation teacher, is stress reduction techniques. And the quote that I have at the top is, even a moderate lifestyle stress reduces lifetime. Even a moderate lifestyle stress will reduce your life expectancy. We're not living in a moderate lifestyle now. And the longer we live, the more that it impacts.
Yeah, that's very true. And I love that you use science and spirituality together. That's my approach as well. I think that spirituality is something that science hasn't discovered yet. It's okay that there's magic in the world, and it's okay that science can't explain it. But
I would just quickly amend on that. I'm going to say the Vedic science, the ancient sciences did. If you go back to the Vedas, they have Ayurveda, which is the wellness stuff. The science is that Vedic astrology is a science that they spend 20 years studying, right? This is a science, but it's based in the spiritual, I will tell you. So I've had various Vedic astrologers do readings on me. And they've all said something weird about my stomach at each time. One of them said, oh, you've had stomach surgery. I was like, no. Another said, you have to eat differently. And this year, when I met with one, I said, I want to ask about this. Because I've always had a funny tummy as a child. And I started to deal with this horrible acid reflux. It's causing my voice. It's the vocal area here. So I can't speak. And, you can have a little cold or a croaky thing for majority of your business. But if you do voiceover work, you cannot have that. I mean, we dialed in a couple of minutes later because I went to take my aloe vera juice to help with my stomach and make sure I cleared my sinuses, because I know this is an audio recording. Right? During here you've muted, had a little cough. That's completely normal. But in a voice session, they don't want the mouth noise. So I'm very, very conscious of it. And so I said, what's going on? I've been having these issues with it. And he simply said, based on this thing in the chart, all the planets that you have and they're combust against each other, you're going to have stomach issues. Well, could you have not, somebody told me when I was younger, and I wouldn't have all of that horrible less than feeling of people saying, oh, you and your funny tummy, right? It's a legitimate thing that, they say now you got to do your holistic. Well, I mix things in, and it happened to me a long time ago, about 2017, but I was doing about 28 voices in one session. And I didn't think carob would affect the vocal area the way that chocolate does. And I was wrong. But I went and got everything looked at, blah, blah, blah. None of them said, oh, it's acid for your throat. But then when I surrendered one day and started taking either, imrazapol or whatever, it stopped getting sore. So that was what was happening. And so now I have that wisdom. And once I figured out what was happening, because it actually makes me ache. And then I also have sinus stuff because the body's trying to get rid of it. And then I have to figure out what can I eat on top of the hypoglycemia, right? Mm-hmm. Am I celiac? I don't know. But I do know when I don't have gluten, it's a heck of a lot easier on my system to digest. And now everyone talks about the gut. Yes. But my primary issue, it's the stomach. Mm-hmm. So I can't take the vitamins in the morning, right? I have to make sure it's with a certain type of meal and very slowly, right? And so that's where a Vedic science with spirituality and wisdom does come together, and we've walked away from it, and people will still laugh about it. And here we have astrologers, I'm talking the scientists, saying there's going to be an assassination, there's going to be a rise in Bitcoin value, Donald Trump is going to get elected. All of these things that those who know what they're talking about, I'm sorry, we do have human free will, but they can predict that there's going to be something going on. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the science of it, but what the problem is, which I think you're really addressing, is we're not taught that science is spiritual. We're not taught that. And then there becomes the spiritual person and the scientific person. The religious person can't believe in science. It's all science. It's all science. We're all atoms.
We're all just trying to understand. Mm-hmm. And just some things we can't explain yet. Absolutely. And thank you for teaching me about the Vedic science. I actually have a very special astrologer in my life. And I can't wait to discuss that with him. Virgo rising over here and a Pisces.
Oh, so you are yes, you're the opposites. Mm-hmm. I depending on the astrology, but in the Western astrology, it's a Pisces rising.
Okay.
Right, and I have half the planets in Leo and Virgo. But in the Vedic astrology, it's the actual Aquarius rising, and they're all in Leo. Oh. And that's where they see. So either way, if it's looked at completely scientifically, it will be the same person, right? You have to take the whole image, right? Mm-hmm. But I listen to both things and see what resonates within me. But having that organizer, here they're talking about the harmonious organizer is based on the Saturn in the chart. But in the Western astrology, it will be based on the fact that in Virgo, in that particular house, having Mercury, having the moon there, gives these qualities. Mm-hmm. So it's the same person. We have to just look at all of it as a science, not simply a sun sign. Because the Vedic astrology didn't base it on the sun. It based it on the moon. And then the Western astrology based it on the sun, thinking that the sun went around us. So I believe it might be 2033 or something, where it comes back together. They're in alignment. But that's why there's a 23-degree difference. And I got into that science for healing, basically. There's a lot of healing for me learning about myself.
Absolutely. And that urge to understand, that curiosity, is something that I wish for everybody. I think everybody needs to be a bit more curious. Pardon me. I'm so sorry that we have to to end the conversation here. I would love to have you back and we can just talk about astrology and science and spirituality. So Paula can be found at paulajanenewman.com.
Yes.
And my favorite part is if you click on the link bio and you scroll down a little bit, you can buy her a cuppa. So if you feel so inclined, please go buy her a cuppa.
Yes, I feel like a cuppa now.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And what a beautiful human being you are. And it's just such a privilege to be able to speak with you.
Right back at you.
Thank you so much. And that's it for the episode today. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to support the podcast or contact me, you can go to www.DearPsychopomp.com.